Okay, so looks like we're live now. So obviously my name's Eric Barson, I'm a Painting Business Pro. I got Joe, and how do we say your last name, by the way?
Livesey.
Livesey, Joe Livesey, and Abby. Abby really runs the company down there in Florida, and Joe's, well,
He's
I'll
a
let them
Facebook
introduce
poster.
themselves a little bit. Say again?
He just posts on Facebook. That's it.
He posts a little bit once or twice on Facebook. So, and then I've got Scott Lollar here. So the purpose of this call is Joe and Abby had a commercial opportunity. It's a pretty big repaint opportunity that they came across, as many painting contractors do. And they posted in our Painting Business Pro group saying, hey, we've got this opportunity, would like some help. I tagged Scott, and I'll introduce Scott in a moment. And he offered to do a call with these two to help them out. So Scott's background, he'll maybe say a little bit more, but I'll give him the introduction because he's a humble guy. Basically a little over a year ago, I wanted to get into commercial painting. We'd already done a bunch of painting at my painting company, commercial work at our painting company. Some jobs went really well, some went really poorly. And the ones that went poorly, we got our ass kicked with our time, with finances, with stress, enough so that I said, look, when we're going to really go into commercial work, we're going to do it right and learn how to do it right. That happened in 2020. I started doing a ton of homework and a ton of research. It became very clear to me that I was going to need an expert, a consultant, a coach, someone to help me build my whole business model so that I could pursue it the right way and save myself years of learning lessons and mistakes. After talking to a bunch of people, everything was pointing to Scott Lollar. So Scott and I started talking. I had resolved that I was going to hire Scott as a consultant. I reached out to the Painting Business Pro group and said, hey, would you guys like a commercial course? And we decided to kill two birds with one stone. And as we built the commercial business model for my company, at the same time, we built a training program for all painting contractors out there, because nothing like this existed. There was no commercial painting training out there at all. If there was, I would have bought it. So that's kind of how Scott and I got together. So Scott's been in the commercial painting industry for 30 years. He's been the general manager of a couple different multi-million-dollar commercial painting outfits. So he saw how the whole business worked top to bottom. Specializes in repaints. For a few years now, Scott's been doing his own thing as a coaching consultant. So he works with dozens of painting companies as a consultant, specializes in commercial painting, and specifically we get into commercial repaints for a lot of reasons. We're not going to get into why commercial repaints today. But just know that that's where like the real big opportunity is, the easiest money, the highest margins. If you're going to focus on one of the aspects of commercial, repaints is where to go. So anyway, so that's why we're here. Now, when I saw the post from Joe and Abby, I tagged Scott. I gave a little bit of advice. And the one kind of general advice I'm going to give to everybody watching this is good advice doesn't come in Facebook comments. Good advice can't be given in a sentence or a paragraph or even in a half hour. We're going to spend however much time we need on this call to help Joe and Abby out with this bid and this project. But it's important to know that to really go after the commercial industry, right, or really any business, doing it right is the way to do it, and doing it right takes time. So we have a full commercial painting training program. It's top to bottom, covers every aspect of the business. And we won't be able to get into all of that today. We're just going to do the best we can. If you're really serious about being ready for commercial opportunities when they come, because they will come, we would recommend that you actually take the full program, because there's a lot to know. And little things can lead to costly mistakes or huge missed opportunities. So having said that, I'll make sure that the link to the commercial painting program is somewhere around this post or this video. But I'm going to shut up at this point, and I'm just going to kind of sit back, and you guys can just kind of watch in on this call where Scott's basically just going to coach Joe and Abby through this project. So
awesome.
I'll step away side there and let you take it, Scott.
Beautiful. Thanks, Eric. Well, good to meet you both, Abby and Joe. If you see me looking around, it's because I've got a lot of browsers open ready for what I want to take you through. What I'm going to do is probably the dream is that I'm going to give you a price at the end of this 45 minutes, and that's not going to happen. Okay, so be bummed out now. But I'm going to help you get a lot of information that everybody watching and you could go, hey, when I see something like this or anything that even resembles a commercial opportunity, what are some things we should do? And then, like Eric just said, all of this stuff's in the course, but for today, we want to get you some help. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to start, before we get into what I want, my questions and my comments, I want to show everybody what we're talking about so we can all be on the same page. So here's 4 very feeble pictures that Joe sent me. I'm kidding, Joe. So this is what we're talking about. This is 3 condo buildings. This is what it looks like, just so point of reference. Here's the back side of this, and I'll address this in a minute. And here's the garages. The first floor is parking garages. If you want to know a little bigger footprint, here's the Google Earth of this bad boy right here. Here's the 3 buildings. That's what it looks like. You know, the backside's basically full balcony, enclosed balconies that overlook this wildlife area. So that's what we're talking about now. So I'll put those other pictures back here. Just let me here. I've got a little better picture for you right here. So just as a point of reference, here's what they look like. This is obviously a real estate listing. So the first thing I would do here is what I have some questions for you, and I'd like you to answer them. Is how did this client get your name, Joe or Abby?
Well, that's a really good question. There's a group of guys that go to McDonald's every morning at 5:30, not because the food's great, but because the company's great. And one of them is on the board of this. He's really the decision maker, and we've become friends. He knows that we're new, but he said, "Hey, we've got this painting opportunity coming up. I'd like to get you to give us an estimate."
Okay, awesome. So awesome, love to hear it. You'll networking and using your existing database and client list is where we suggest you start. So Joe does that. This is networking. It's at McDonald's. It's some guys. Boom, bam. All right, cool. So second question: who have they used in the past? Who painted last time? And I think Joe knows that. He said it in his email. About 7 or 8 years ago, they used a large contracting firm. They don't exactly know who that was, right?
I do. I just can't remember their name.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so that's the next thing I'd ask them. What I would then ask is, what was their experience with this contracting firm? Do you know what the answer to that is, Joe?
I think it was pretty good.
It was.
Yeah.
So that's terrible news, right? Because they're basically saying the person that did this for us last time, we had a good experience. So the next question I would ask is, then why are you talking to me? Why aren't they here? They did a good job. So because what I'm trying to do is I'm going to try to figure out, are they tire kicking? Are they keeping the guy honest and just saying, well, I need a second quote and a third quote or a 10th quote, because we already know who's going to do the job. It's the same guy who did it last time. I just want to make sure that he's not screwing me. Or is there something this decision maker thinks that you can add to this discussion? So we want to get into that with him a little bit, and there's lots of ways we can do this. This isn't a sales course, but it's really about sales. Tell me a little bit about what you're hoping I'll do for you, or tell you, or give you that the other guy didn't. What would make this a great experience? Tell me some things that frustrated. Okay, he did a great job, and I'm glad to hear that. But if there was one thing he could do differently, what would that be? We got to get a little context here for why you're talking, okay? Because he likes you, because you meet with him at McDonald's. But, to give you this kind of contract, there's got to be a little bit more bite to it. So, that's sort of that discovery, we call it, that we want to start doing some discovery, because what we don't want to do is go out there and just puke out numbers, because that's a one-dimensional sell. Either you're if you're the low price, you're in. If you're not, you're out. We want to get away from that. And that's why we do all of this work, is tell me what it is that's important to you. Is it price? I hope not, because, quality and price don't typically go together. Is it tenant or owner convenience? Like, is it important that we don't irritate the owners? Or is it quality? Or is it timing? What are the things that are most important? And then we can hone into that. So that's the first thing.
Quick, let's just see. So Joe and Abby, why don't you guys just speak to, so Scott kind of went over a whole bunch of things there. You guys want to just speak to what you know about this project and where you stand and why they're, what do you guys know from everything he just presented?
Well, one thing they told us, he said, I'm pretty sure that the last time this building was painted, we paid $120,000 is what it cost to paint it. And they're not, I'm in Southwest Florida, just south of Naples. And they're probably not going to paint this during what we would call season, because you'd have overspray and everything else. All the cars are underneath the building. There's no other place to put the cars. I mean, they're probably going to try and do this in the spring when, that's pretty much what he's mentioned to me.
But why you?
Well, there's no why me, okay? I think he definitely trusts me, and he knows do a great job. It's just that's the only reason.
Got it. Is there any other background info you've talked to him about up to this point, besides they need the bid and about the seasonality and about their last bid?
Oh, they're frozen.
No.
Give it just a second.
Yep.
Oh, there you go. You're back. Okay.
Joe and Abby, are you guys with us?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there any other? So it sounds like the information you have at this point is it was done for 120 last time. They're looking for a bid to do it this spring, and you've got a relationship with the guy getting the bid.
Right.
Is there any other info you have outside of that?
No.
Okay, great.
All right. So, so we call this whole section like discovery, and just, we have to figure out what's important to them. Maybe warranty. Hey, would you like it? We got to get as much information as possible. Joe, maybe you could. So in Joe's email, I asked Joe in preparation was there an RFP? So an RFP is request for proposal. And I asked him if there was a scope. When there's an RFP, it's typically some items in an RFP about what they want you to do. I want you to paint the building. Well, that's I'm going to show you in a few minutes about a dozen things that no one's thinking about right now that I know can and should be painted. So what is it really when you say, I want you to paint my building? Usually there's an RFP. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. What kind of product? Is it elastomeric, or is it just going to be an architectural coating? How many coats? What's the color? What's the sheen? What's the warranty? Is there caulking? Is there steel? Is there metal? Is there, so, that we need to know. Now, Joe, you have a relationship with the guy, and this would be a very likely thing that he'd say, hey, it's so that I don't miss anything. What's the chances you find the previous contract and shoot me a copy? Even, one of the things that he might feel like is, oh, you're just trying to get the number. No. You can cross out the number if you need to. Just tell me show me what they did, so I can make sure I include all the things that you guys want. I really don't want to miss one, right? So you're going to try to make it sound like, hey, this isn't about me trying to screw you. This is about me trying to be thorough here, because otherwise you're creating an RFP from scratch. So one way or the other, we always say either you receive an RFP with a scope of work, or you're going to create the scope of work. So anyways, let's go forward and let's go ahead and create the scope. So the scope of the work is what work is being requested. So I'm going to go back to the other pictures here. Actually, I'm going to go to Joe's picture right here. So let's go to this picture.
And Scott, before we get into that, so basically, guys, the first thing would be, there's a couple other questions. Like the first actionable thing is the other questions you want to ask to find out where you stand on this bid. Why are they talking to you? Why not just use the other company? One of the principles that we cover a lot in the commercial course is that these bids take a lot of time to do. And we do a lot more of qualifying people and opportunities before we bid them. So that's a, there's a couple questions in there that you just want to fish out to understand why they're even bothering getting a bid from you. And we're going to be a lot more direct in the commercial world than in the residential world. Like, and by direct, I mean, hey, if we end up being about the same price as that other guy, will you use us? Like, you can just ask straight questions like that to fish out. It's more of a business to business, discussion. So you don't need to do as much of a dance as you might with a homeowner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
And so once you've covered some of those questions, we'll back. And then number two, so once we cover that, we're like, cool. So this is worth us bidding. Now we're going to start to build the scope of work. So this is going to be kind of step two, is building your scope of work. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. And I think you've got an advantage, Joe, because you have a breakfast club right there, and you can ask this guy, like, these questions probably. Hey, tell me how they did it. I don't, I have no clue. You could get a lot of information. So let's start looking let's start building our potential scope. Okay, so here's the building. There's a couple of things that I'm just looking at pictures right now, like everybody. Okay, so I'm not there. I'm here in the Chicagoland area. So here's a couple of expansion joints, I'm guessing, right here. Sometimes these need to be recaulked. I don't know what the system is, but I would actually be looking into this. So every floor seems to have this expansion joint. So are they looking for anything in the caulk as far as caulking on this building at all? So I can also see that, let me shrink back up. The door systems into the units, they look like anodized aluminum with glass, right? So it looks like there's no door painting here. Does that sound right? Abby, have you seen this property?
I have seen it. They're aluminum with like a screen.
Yeah. So none of this stuff is going to get painted, but they're definitely caulked to the surface you're painting. So is there any caulking that needs to be done as a maintenance issue? So that would be any fixed area. So whether it's a service door, what caulking are you going to do? So we would specify the activity and the scope of work, and then the product we're going to use is also typically going to be spec'd. I'm not from Florida, so I'm really not clear about this. This could be just like a precast building that we caulk the panels vertically with a urethane. That's way different than, grabbing a tube of caulk like from the paint store. It's a different animal. It's different tooling, different cure time. So you just want to double check. And also visually, you can see if this is cracked, split, separated. You need to ask those questions.
Right. They already told me that.
You just muted, Abby. You muted.
Yeah. They already told. Yeah, she's been doing that her whole life. They already told me that any stucco repairs, we would need to include any stucco repairs in the estimate.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And so, basically, the other thing I can see here is this looks like a gutter system up here. Maybe I don't know. And then there's two colors. It appears to me. Then we have a ceiling. Ceiling portion. Guess what else there is? There's a floor. I don't have any pictures of the floor. So are you supposed to paint the floor? That's a different product and a different process altogether. Or is there a membrane on here? You're going to have to find out what you're doing there. So that's another issue, another substrate, and another product. Same color, I get that, but it's a whole nother system that you need to make sure Then it looks like there's some balcony railings. Am I would I assume these are steel, or are they aluminum, or do you have any clue, Joe?
I would say I think they're steel.
Yep, I would think so. So we have steel railings, okay? Let me zoom back out a little bit, see what else we can determine. Joe you can see through here over these bushes. This is open. This is the parking underneath here. But Joe was guesstimating that these are 8 feet per floor.
Plus, you've got a foot in your floor system.
Exactly right. So I was thinking either 9 or even 10. So I would just shoot. So you all should get a laser. This is an easy job to shoot a laser from the ground over here right up to this overhang. You could shoot this with a laser measurement, and you'd get an accurate measurement. If you were off by 5 feet by the whole building, that's a lot.
Times three.
Times three. So anytime you can shoot a laser measurement, you're good. Now let me show those of you that are watching, and even you, Joe, a couple of things you can do. You can measure this on Google Earth. Okay, this is this property on Google Earth. You just go over here and click the measuring thing. I just go over here and click the corner here. I drag it to here, and I got a measurement. Oh, hold on a second. So you shoot your corner here, and you drag it to here. I got 151. And then if I go ahead and get my corner from here to here, let me do it one more time here. I got about 45. So, you know, in your email to me, you said this building was 200 feet long. So maybe you stepped it off. I don't know what you did, but I don't know. I don't think it's 200 feet. I wouldn't go to court with Google Earth measurements, but it's usually pretty good starting points. So Google Earth is a nice way to look at buildings. If someone wants you to, give them some feedback, you can see the footprint on Google Earth. It's a nice place to start, and you can get some measurements right off here without doing anything else. So, so we have. Let me just show you a couple other things. So we have like a kind of this bell tower effect over here, which I don't know if you can walk on this roof. I don't know if you can access it. Otherwise, you're going to need a lift that gets all the way up here. Now, in the course, we talk a little bit about the lifts, and there's more. Some people think about lifts going high, right? And lifts also need reach. So you might not be able to put this lift right up here against this building that might be sitting out where this car is. So if you had a 40-foot boom, you could get straight up here, but you couldn't get over here. So you need to just talk to your lift company and ask them to do a physical job site and tell them what you need. And they have these schematics and different things that'll tell you if you want to park the lift right here and get up to this top of this thing right here, you need a 60-foot boom. So that keeps you from undersizing your boom rental and then you have to go rent another one. And those guys don't say, sorry, don't worry about it, we won't charge you. They charge you for everything. They charge you to pick up the lift was wrong. They charge you to deliver the right one. So you want to have your lift team, assuming you're going to use lifts, to come out here and tell you which ones you need. There's also times, Joe, when you need more than one kind of lift. So you might need a straight boom, a stick boom. You might need an articulating lift for some. So you might want to rent a couple of different kinds for the same job for different.
Scott, let me interrupt real quick.
Yep.
So I want to just bring some context into this so you guys are clear where this is heading. So we've got the first step was that discovery meeting. Make sure I'm not wasting my time. Questions and things like that. Now we're getting into, okay, I'm going to pursue this. So there's going to really be like three steps that are all tied together. The first, which is what Scott's going over, is building the scope of work. And, he's pointing out the things you should consider to build this scope of work. Here's how you can measure. Here's some things people get caught up with building that scope of work. Here's all the things he's mentioned. You want to consider the boom lifts, the size, colors, prep work, stucco repair, to name, so he's going through it on this project specifically. And then we have like a master scope of work checklist that, you'll follow too, but he's going to hit on all the ones he'd be thinking about to build your scope of work.
Yeah.
And hang on, Scott. So scope of work is going to be the first thing we build. Now, why do we need to build that? Well, because that's how we're going to price it, and it's how we're going to write the contract. Without a detailed scope of work, how do you bid it right? and without a detailed scope of work, how do you write the contract to protect you and the client?
Yep.
Then the third step, so we got the scope of work, which we're going to use to build the price and contract, but then let's say they go with us. Well, now we're going to use that scope of work to build the project plan. So $120,000 project is going to take 6 weeks, 4 to 8 weeks, let's say, depending on size of crew and logistics. You're going to, the way commercial is going to be different is you're going to front load a lot of the work on production. Most of the work is planning. Daily, there's not much because you're just on one project for 6 to 8 weeks. It's the planning, and the planning comes back to the scope of work. So that's how, just so you can be thinking like this is how this is fitting in and why we're starting here. So you can kind of see, I'm just taking the context and zooming out a little.
Yeah. Thanks, Eric.
And go ahead, Scott. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Keep going. Sorry.
Well, I was going to say, so Scott, the way you guys will look at this is Scott's going to be pointing out the things to consider on your scope of work. I'll send you a template for it. Just remind me after. And the other thing you could do, and this is for anyone who's like going after a bid, is get your Sherwin rep out there, because they're going to be able to help you with products, bidding, pricing, maybe even some prep work stuff, because they're local to the area and they want you to land that job, because then you're buying a paint through your rep and they're getting their incentives that way. So, so far, Scott mentioned you can ask your client if they have the other RFP, and you can kind of steal their scope of work from theirs. You could find out if they have the one they used from 8 years ago, if they still have a copy of that contract. And then you can use your Sherwin rep, and then you can use, Scott's advice on this call. And this is all to build that scope of work, which is how we'll bid and build a contract, and then we'll get to project moving.
Yeah. Thanks, Eric. Yeah, so we don't have a ton of pictures, so I'm kind of focused on one, but Eric's right. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at this one picture and I'm going, how I'm a horse whisperer type of thing, right? I'm a building whisperer. What's all the information that I can glean from this picture? If I was standing there, it'd be easier, but I'm not. So we have several colors. We have stucco. I have protection of a window here. Of entry systems in here. I've got windows here. I can see there looks to be a gutter system that's painted a color. There's a downspout here. There's a roof here that needs to be protected. I can see some mechanicals or some kind of electrical in here. Are we painting that junk? Are we not painting that junk? And I'll come back to that later about when we write our contract. So I'm getting all sorts of information from this. I'm looking at, and I'm not good at not being prepared. Here's what I typed for this meeting to talk to you guys. And here it is right here. It's what is the work being requested? Painting walls, floors, stairs. There's probably some stairwells here. You didn't show me a picture, but I know there's stairwells here. What are the stairs? Are they steel? Are they concrete pan? Are they steel nosed? Is it a metal railing? So I knew those questions have to be asked. I don't even know. I've never been to this place. Then I'm saying, is there caulking? Is there carpentry? You added one I didn't think of, stucco repair. So this is the work being requested. Then I'm going to identify each substrate, which is I'm going through right now. So we have stucco or some cementitious material. We have steel. Those are two things we know. And then I'll show you the next picture. Then I'm going to go through what kind of prep are we doing. Then I want to know what we're doing, coating. What's our product? What are our sheens? What are our colors? What are our number of coats? And what's our application method? Next, I said, what equipment is required? Are we going to do lifts or swing stage or ladders? Now, everybody tracking? Am I good, Eric? So let me go back to the picture.
Yeah. So, let's just pause quick and ask Joe and Abby, how you guys doing so far?
We're doing fantastic. I actually took the I took the sub and I showed him the job.
Yep, great.
And he's like, listen, I've been a sub on a number of condos, and then also the previous company I worked for, I worked on a lot of these, and he did talk about the different types of lifts and how many he's actually only got 5 guys, but he would probably buddy up with another guy, and they would do it together.
Yeah.
It's too much for one. It's too much. He'd
For
have
five
to shut
person.
down his whole company for 6 or 8 weeks.
Yeah. All right. So let's move into. Go ahead.
Any questions so far, or should we just kind of keep? Is this valuable? Is this what you're kind of looking for?
Definitely.
Okay. So should Scott just kind of keep rolling?
Yeah.
Okay. And just interrupt if you have questions or want clarification at the end. Well, he'll ask if you can ask some other questions.
Yeah, jump in anytime, and Eric's watching because I'm not watching your faces. I'm on a different screen, but jump in anytime, and he's providing good context. So here we are in the parking garages. I don't have a lot of information here, but I can see there's tons of conduit in here. I also can see, actually, it's the next picture right here. So here's your plumbing stack, I think it is. So I'm guessing this is steel. You can see here's a hanger right here. This has got some visible rust on it. And then there's all this conduit strung along here on the ceiling. The other thing I can tell you right now, this looks like a semi-gloss finish on the ceiling here. Now, I also can tell you this is pretty dirty because it's a parking garage. So this is going to have to get washed, my guess is. So, this is going to be something you're going to have to engineer with your painting supplier. Can you blast this ceiling with the same product? Or are can you spot prime some of this rusted? Because conduit typically is usually galvanized, or it's not steel typically. So it's you can paint it with the same anything. But or do you upgrade to a more of an acrylic industrial product like a DTM acrylic, where you can just blast this surface and go ahead and paint in the metal? So you're going to have to do a little engineering to figure out how you're going to do all these different substrates, because you have concrete, you've got steel, you've got galvanized, and then you also have the other thing that caught my attention is these storage lockers. There's stuff inside of here, which we're going to have to coordinate to probably get this stuff protected or removed during painting. There's also some numbers here. Are we going to remove them, replace them? In my world, I would have just take pictures of these, and I would just order online new numbers, because it's not worth screwing around with. But it's real, right? It's gonna happen. Someone's gonna blast these, or someone's gonna break these. So you're gonna have to just figure that out. That's gonna be part of planning your project. So you've got your parking garage. The other thing, and then this is the one thing that I really was like trying to find a good picture, and I couldn't find one. I could find in this advertisement. So this particular cell, this is what I wanted to see on the back side. This is actually a real estate sales thing that's showing you their patio looking out, and here's what that looks like from the inside. I was trying to get a good picture, and this is what the only picture Joe has. So I'd like to see a better picture of this. I could have been more helpful, but this is the job right here. Okay. This is where you're going to get crushed right here, because first of all, I don't know about how I'm not sure what's back here and the lift, and you're in Florida. Maybe there's maybe there's some fancy bird laying eggs back here and you can't look at it or touch it. I don't know. But this is going to be a challenge, because you're going to have to either prime them to go, we're going to crush a lot of vegetation, and we need a plan for that, or we need to put plywood down. But I don't know what your access is like back here, but I can see their screens right here. So how are you painting all of this? Or is this aluminum, or is this painted? I don't know. I'm assuming this is more steel to be painted. I could be wrong though.
It's a good question to ask, but like I live in a condo down here, and any type of screen or any of that thing is the responsibility of the unit owner, just like the walls inside their lanai are the responsibility of them to get painted. So I'm not sure that we would be painting that. You know what I mean? The metal on the screens.
And it's these are just all great questions to be thinking about. It's like, how much detail do I need here?
Yeah.
It's going to save this for later, but let's just be clear that we're trying to cover a lot of stuff in a short amount of time, which is why to anyone watching who's like, man, this is like a lot. So that's why we have a whole course on this. And the details are really the key, because considering all of this, it's a lot to think about. It's very different from residential because there's so much to think about and process through up front. But this is where we make all the money. When we get there, it's really easy. So we did a really big job this year. Producing it was a breeze, but we did a ton of prep on it. It's a $300,000 job. And the key to the detail and it being smooth is the client's happy because the tenants are happy because it was smooth, so that in 7 years, they're not asking somebody they're at the breakfast with at McDonald's for a bid. They're just hiring you guys again. And so it's that and when they are out to, having their breakfast club and meeting with their people, they're referring you to the other companies they know too. So that's the I just want to shine a light on that. Like, that's why to be extremely detailed and put the time in is it sets you up for the win, which sets you up for the repeat business and sets you up for the referrals. And once you work your way through this, like, this might seem overwhelming to someone who's new to this, but to Scott, this is just like another day at the office. And so I just want to add some context to that too, that it's definitely very new and different, but one step at a time.
Yeah. And so you know that when you all are in the residential sector and you say, I'm going to paint this for $3,000, and you go in there and the person says, aren't you doing the closets? Right? You get that, right? Because you didn't say you were and you weren't. You go, oh, we don't paint closets. You didn't say it, and they thought you were. Well, take that example and look at the back of this building. Well, I assumed you were going to remove all the screen and paint the railing. I told you I want the building painted. Bam. How much is that? 10 grand, 15 grand? I don't know. I mean, just like poof, like you can't do that here. So we just need clarification. This is way outside the scope here, but it's just an RFI request for information or clarification. But we can ask them, tell me exactly what we're doing here. Who's responsible for this screen? Because the other thing is, you ever oversprayed a screen? That's not going to go out very well. So are we protecting all this stuff, or is there some mechanism that they can be removed, or what's happening here? Because what Eric just said is, this is you're bringing the future to the present. Someone's going to be aggravated, and so you try to fix it now. So you got to figure out what's going on here. The other thing I kind of looked at, Joe, was down here in this corner. So this is obviously T111 siding here, at least on this section. And it looks like there's some rot down here, maybe. I don't know. It looks crushed or rotten down here. So, clarification of, are you guys doing any wood repairs? Somebody else doing them? The other thing, see, these are just simple things that I get from a picture that's not even a great picture, right? Here's conduit right here that's rust. It's steel pipe right here, and it's rusted like bad. So this is going to have to be really prepped fairly aggressively with a pretty good scrape or wire brush and a really hardcore metal universal primer. I mean, you can't not do this right, because this will rust again in a year. What the salt water does to stuff. So there's stuff like this you have to check. Make sure. And actually, I could be wrong. That might just be the sunlight. At first, I thought it was. Now I'm seeing this PVC pipe, and that's the sun. Well, okay, my bad. So that's kind of what I have for this. So then from there, what I would do is I would go and I would create the scope, and I would tell them what we're doing, how we're going to do it, what products, all that kind of thing. And then I want to talk a little bit about inclusions and exclusions in your contract. It's a big part of commercial work that we spend a fair amount of time on. And it goes back to what I just said, is you need to specifically say what you are painting and specifically what you aren't.
Scott, before we go into that detail, let me complete that last point.
Go for it.
I'll send you guys a template for a scope of work, and we'll send you a template for your contract, which is what Scott's going to get into. Just to reiterate, the details on this are really, you could probably come up with a price, and it's like, yeah, the price probably doesn't change when you consider all the, some of the details you're going to think through on the scope of work doesn't change the price. And that's where people get themselves in trouble, because you don't think through it, because it doesn't impact the price, but it does impact the project planning. And the project planning could impact doing things twice, which could be a $2,500 swing in profit. So like missing something small could cost you 2,500 or $5,000 or 10 grand later on big projects like this. So you want to be thorough on the scope of work. And what you would do is you've got, to reiterate, you've got your Sherwin rep, you've got your client, you've got your subcontractor to all walk the project and make sure you've got it all. Once I know I've got it all, then I'm going to price it and build this contract. Building the contract is where the inclusions and exclusions comes into play. So that's where we're at now.
Yeah, perfect. So the other thing, this is something that's kind of got me baffled, but I don't think we can do anything about it today. Here's one of the pictures I picked up off the MLS listings. This is the back side, the part that I'm trying to look at right now, where you've got this picture that's down here. But like, first of all, there's this roof all around. There's this, and look, I'm guessing it's metal, but I don't know what it is. But you just have to confirm that that's not to be painted, or you need to make that an exclusion. We're not painting the roof. Now, what some people might say, well, Scott, you're not that smart, because they asked us to paint the building, not the roof. If they want us to paint the roof, if this has been previously coated, when we say painting, some people are saying coating. Like, no, the roof's painted, you should paint the roof. So that's an exclusion, or it's an RFI, request for information. Are we painting this roof? You know, maybe you know that right off the bat because you're there. I'm not there, and I'm telling you, this roof could easily be painted. And some board member that thinks that they know what they're doing could say, "Well, I figured that was included. The last guy included it, and you're screwed." Right? So, you know, you also have to look at the backside of that little bell tower thing and how it attaches. So there's some stuff here on the back that I think you really need to spend some time on, because this back section is the job. Those other three sides are pretty straightforward, in my opinion. Not easy or anything. I'm just saying there's a lot of detail back here that I have no clue how to help you because I can't see it.
Right. Here's one thing I would say. I know that I don't know when it comes to this project, okay? If they refuse to give me a scope of work, I'm not going to even pursue this job. Because there's too much here, and I don't have time to learn that much on this job. You know what I'm saying? It's just it's not a good trade-off.
Yeah.
That's what I'm feeling right now.
Well, and one thing about that, Joe, is that's what we would recommend.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, yep.
But
we would say, if you're not ready for a project, you know, you should step your way up to projects like this. But also, I think Scott can speak to this. Even when you get handed a scope of work, it's really important that you take full ownership over building your own scope of work, because they could miss things, and you don't want to. Anyway, Scott, you can probably speak to that. I think that's probably what you're going to.
Yeah. And Joe, I'm not trying to persuade you or dissuade you. I'm just trying to give you some, take some of the scales off your eyes. If you sent me 50 pictures of this building, I could write a scope of work for you, but I don't have them. But, I'm just telling you, there's a lot of questions here. You shouldn't run, but there's some questions. So that's the part I'm concerned about. And I just want, this backside is going to be the killer. The other thing I'll just tell you, Joe, a little bit, and to anyone listening is Joe in an email had done this is how high it is, and this is how long the building is. This is how much square footage we have. He said, but there's a lot of deductions is what that's the gist of what he told me. Well, there's not that many deductions, but there's also a lot of flat of other sides. So you have the balcony overhang. You have all these overhangs. That's not on the surface area. That's a separate. You've got this kind of section. You've got inside of here. So you have a lot of different surfaces that are not just part of the length times height type of thing. So yeah, this building, Yeah, it's just a lot more square footage than just measuring it like that. So, and then the last thing I'll just tell you from here, the questions that you have to ask, which we also talk about in the course, are these some general things. Is there water access? Okay. Probably you never had an opportunity to run 300 or 400 feet of hose to power wash something, right? So you got to go, can we use the water? You think that's a stupid question? Yeah, well, just wait till you try to tap into some homeowner's water meter, and you got to call the police. Like, it's not good. So you got to find out that simple stuff like this: water, electricity, where is it? You know, how far do you have to go to get it? Where are we going to store our stuff? Are we going to have a storage area, a shop? What about lift parking? Where can we park the lift? You know, these are basic things you assume, but they add professionalism to what you're. I can send this to you, Abby, this whole document. What are the work hours? You know, some of these HOAs are very stringent about you can't start till 9. You got to be out of here by 3. Well, that's great. You got a 6-hour workday. You know, so you know, can we make exclusions? What can happen? The other thing here is tenant. I call it restrictions. Like Joe addressed it. Like, how are we going to communicate with them? This is a real important thing with HOAs, is that they don't get calls from irritated owners. I know you might have a lot of remote owners that won't even be here, but we're gonna mask out their door for a day. Like, is that okay? Like, how mad are they gonna be when they try to get out and go to a grocery store? What about the cars? You know, Joe, you mean you can't? You're gonna have to relocate the cars because you got to paint the under. So how are we going to protect from getting overspray on the cars? How long is it going to take? So these are the things that we're going to have to negotiate on the front end. And then what we would suggest is that you do the posting of great notices, really clear communication. Here's who you talk to. We want this to be a great experience. We hope that you will let us know when you need something. But most property managers, I know you're not dealing with the manager, you're dealing with the board. What they want is they want nobody to complain to them that you are irritating them. That's what they want. You think they want a paint job. That's the second thing they want. The first thing they want is not additional work because they hired you as the goofball painter. So Eric, I happen to work with Eric's team on that job he's talking about. I bet they got $3-4 grand into time just talking about that job before they even did anything on that site. Easy. And I could tell you that he made that money back a lot, many times over, because of that planning and about being clear and managing. So that is really what gets you in on these properties. Is we're going to make your life so great, and this is going to be a great experience. We can do that. So, you know, these are questions that you need to ask so you're clear about it, so that when you get there, they say, no, you have to get rid of the lifts. They can't even be on this property every night. You didn't know that, and now you're in trouble. And that's happened to me before, and I knew about it, and so I planned for it. So,
so what I would, oh yeah, and by the way, Scott, we ended up grossing 60% on that project.
Oh, beautiful. I'm happy for you guys.
We crushed that project, and they're super happy, and they just signed the next $350K.
Yeah.
So yeah, so kudos to Scott. I'm not the only one. He's helped a lot of people land a lot of super profitable jobs. We're also going through an enormous amount of material in a short amount of time. So anyone watching this, keep that in mind.
That's another concern. That's another concern that I have. I don't know how many hundreds of gallons this is going to take, but Abby, I'm sure I can find it, but Abby and I don't have the clout. I have more clout with PPG than Sherwin-Williams, but we don't have the clout to find 400 gallons of paint.
Well, I mean, the lesson here, so I'll speak to that in a couple ways. One is, just be okay not doing the project. I mean, the thing that and this is a YouTube video I just put out, and Joe, I know you get this through and through, but I'll say it for anybody watching, is you don't chase opportunities. This building's going to get painted again in 7 years. You know, you guys are in a market that probably does $1 billion in painting every year. There's no shortage of business. And the nice thing about the business we're in is it needs to be painted again and again and again. So turning down an opportunity is not as, it's hard for people to walk away from opportunities, but it's not logical to walk away from it's not logical to be worried about walking away from them because there's another one around the corner.
Mhm.
So if it's going to create, and you guys are doing awesome with your residential work right now. I mean, you also got to remember, hey, if we're going to pursue this, it means by default, we're not pursuing something else because it is going to take some time. So that's all of these, what you're bringing up, Joe, getting the paint, look into all those things before you sink too much time into this. Be picky about what you're going to pursue and post in the group, reach out to people, see if, I don't think there's anything I can really help with in terms of finding paint, but whoever does this job is going to find the paint. So.
Yeah. You can leverage, Joe, your contacts and, just be a good partner and just say, hey, this is in play, but I need you to guarantee that you're going to be able to get me the material. That's what it's going to take. We
bought hundreds of gallons of paint months ahead for the project we were doing and just had them stash it. So, they didn't charge us for it. They just stashed it. And that's partly we have a good relationship, which is some you'll build over time as well. So what I would suggest from here is, hopefully this gives you guys enough direction for like, what's your next step. I'll have Carl send you over scope of work contract template and a couple of videos for those. So you've got that. And determine, hey, are we going to go after this first? And if you say we are, you can use those resources to do so. What we don't need to get into now is what happens if they say, yeah, let's do it. In the project planning, we can do a separate call if we get to that point, because that's a whole other combo.
Right. I think another direction that we would like to do once we get the course is I have a relationship with a property management company that manages like $600 million worth of property in our area. And I just want to go to them and say, hey, can we do some interior repaints for you on commercial properties? Can we do some little stuff and create the relationship, start doing a little work and grow into things like this?
That's 100% the way to go, Joe. Ty was one of our, she's not an example of normal. I would say 90% of people who get into commercial, it's slow, consistent growth, right? It takes a while to get the first relationship, but you're building a recurring book of business. Ty did 2.2 million in commercial sales in her first 12 months. And it was 600,000 in the first 6 months, 1.6 million in the next 6 months. And I remember one of her first jobs she landed was painting 2 accent walls in a store in a strip mall. And a couple weeks later, they called her back and wanted all 15 stores and the 2 anchor stores painted. And that was like the beginning of her recurring massive book of, she's just dominant. She's doing incredible in this niche. And so your approach there, Joe, is exactly the approach we suggest and tell people to do, is like, you just use your existing network first. But commercial is all about relationships, professionalism, and process. Residential is more or less a numbers game. It's lots of leads, lots of estimates, lots of jobs, busy, and not a lot of repeat business. Commercial is the opposite. It's slow, steady. It's less about like smooth sales and more about just delivering and professionalism. So it's really nice. The more we've gotten into it and done some of these projects ourselves, like, it's a more attractive business. There's a lot more risk and a lot more at stake. And so you got to you're a lot more cautious about what am I going to pursue and not pursue, and making sure I'm ready before I get into it. So,
yeah, and that property manager, Joe, is it's exact. I've said it a lot, and Eric said it a lot. It's exactly what we say in the course. You find your property manager, like you said, and there's lots of little things that need to get done, and some of these big people don't want to mess with it. Well, you're saying, I'll mess with it. I need a trash enclosure painted. I need a bathroom done. I need 10 doors done. I'm your guy. And then eventually you get opportunities and opportunities and opportunities. And once you establish trust, they're probably not even
They won't even shop you.
They won't shop you.
Yeah, we have some companies that used to shop us every time to keep us honest, and they don't now. They quit bothering.
Yeah.
Right.
Now they might just say, "Hey guys, can you bring this down a few hundred?" And we're like, "Yeah, sure." And that's the end of it. Like it's handing us money at this point.
Yeah.
And we deliver. I mean, it's earned. And we're even starting to build out like a service team to handle just small projects, warranty work, customer service, and service work, so we can have our foot in the door for the big stuff. And that's something that, Ryan Groth is a friend of mine that teaches, that does commercial sales for all different contractors. But that's one of his angles, is like, get in the door with service. I know you don't like it. I know it's a pain. I know it's not that profitable, but that's how you're there when they call you up with the $500,000 job.
Right.
What questions do you guys have while we got Scott here?
I can't really think of any. I'd like the opportunity maybe to have a brief conversation after we get to scope and get a little bit better measurements and better pictures and so forth.
Sounds good. That sounds good. I'll follow up with a couple things for you guys just in our email thread.
Yeah. And you guys have my email. If you need something more, I'll send Abby. I just wrote some notes like I've been showing you just for this call because I wanted to be ready. I'll send them to you, just my musings and ramblings, and you can have them. But yeah,
I appreciate you guys sharing with us the framework and the process that one walks through to be even in a position to deliver an estimate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very different. The only thing that's the same as residential is you're taking paint and putting it in a bucket and putting it on a wall. Everything else is different, and so.
Yeah, I get the whole idea. Hey, why are we even talking? Like, if you're happy with the last guy, I mean, just use him.
Yeah.
You got to find pain somewhere.
Yeah.
If there is none, you might as well just not even unpack your bags.
Oh, hey, also, estimating. This is one thing I wanted to leave you guys with is there is the scope, right? You're gonna want to make sure you're clear what's painting and what's not. There's two ways I would go about actually bidding this, and it has nothing to do with what the last guy did it for, right? So one mistake people make, I don't think you guys will, but this is for the benefit of others, is pricing it to win it. Now you price it for what you need to price it at. And we're aiming for 40 to 45% gross margins. And so I would follow the same type of production rates as you would on residential to come up with your price, and know that 50% of that goes to the painter. And so just use math to figure out, okay, so what should our price be if we're aiming for 40 to 45% gross? Another way you could say it is price it like residential and take 15% off. And then to check your price, get your sub to quote it. And then third way to check the price is get a bid from the paint store on the total cost of paint, and total cost of paint should be around 20% of the project.
20%?
Yes.
I would say it's about 15% for residential when we're aiming for 50% gross, 20% for commercial when we're aiming for 40 to 45% gross profit.
Yeah.
About 20% of your project should be material. And that changes because depending on the type of material and other things, but that's a general rule of thumb. So you can just know, hey, if the paint store says 20 grand, your $100,000 price is probably safe. If the painter says, and by the way, we're producing commercial work, not writing one check to the subcontractor. We're buying material, we're paying them labor only, and you'll actually increase your margins doing it that way. They'll want more if they think they're buying material. And so for our project, we said, hey, we'll pay you $10,000 a week for you and your guys to do this project. And then we bought materials, negotiated a great rate with the paint store. And that's how we ended up making 60%. And our sub was super happy with just his labor only rate.
Yeah.
That would be some ways that you guys can double check pricing and feel comfortable. assuming you're comfortable with the scope. Go ahead, Scott.
Right.
Yeah, and this job without question will be 20%. And you know, you're gonna go through a lot of material. There's a lot of surface here on the 3 sides at least. So.
Couple questions in here. Someone mentioned Roofr, ROOFR.com has been handy for measuring. Let's see. And then Jonathan wants to know what if the building falls down? That must have been a joke that we missed. Any advice on interior commercial stuff, or is that not the market you advise going after? No, it's fine. It'd be, I mean, this is another great example of like, you can't give advice any good advice in 2 minutes. Like, if anyone who's out there looking for quick advice in Facebook groups or even YouTube videos, like, no, we have training programs for a reason, because good advice isn't shortcuts. It's doing things right, and doing things right takes time. Interior commercial is great. You just need to follow the same process. And then the last question someone had was, what percentage of the time do these large HOAs have a clue versus not have a clue of what they're hiring for? And I think most of the time they don't have a clue.
Yeah, you know what? That question just triggered something in me. My gosh, Eric, we did a 12-week course, and we're trying to do it in an hour here. So. Yeah. This is what we call a self-managed HOA. Very likely, the board member is getting the proposal. So there's an important distinction. Where I'm from, most HOAs are going to be managed by a property manager.
Yep.
And this one, Joe's engaged the board member. So to answer that question, they might neither one totally understand the painting. They might be leaning on you for a scope and for product and such, but property manager knows a lot about what they're doing.
Yeah, one other aspect I thought of, just since we've been sitting here, is that we probably need to understand what their general liability limits that they're going to be looking for, and our policy may not be, at this time, it may not be high enough.
That's true. And if the project, if through your discovery process, you're like, this is my ideal client, I have a very good chance at winning this bid, I understand roughly their budget, it seems reasonable, like that's that's where we want to be before we really pursue a project. Is I want this job, I can do this job, I have a great chance at getting this job.
Right.
And if that's the case, you can say, hey, assuming we do, if you guys hire us, we will change our policy, and just make it part of your bid, right? If you're standing to make $50,000 on this, pay an extra $2,000 for your insurance, worth it, right? So, wouldn't be too concerned.
That's where a RFP is really important. So if they don't give you that information, then they can't. What you need to do is make sure you have enough to cover your butt. But you can, we talk about in the course, you can increase all lines with an umbrella. You don't need individual limits, individual lines increase. Buy an umbrella. You can go up to 5 million if you need to, and it's not that much money.
Right. Hey, Abby's computer's about ready to die.
Cool. Okay, good.
So
hope it was useful, guys. Keep us posted. I'll get a couple things sent your way through an email. We'll let you get out of here, and then Scott and I are going to answer this last question. But keep us posted, all right?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
All right. See ya.
Okay. Bye, guys. All right. So this one here, Scott ran into a retirement community we painted, and at the end, this sounds awful. The president of the board allowed all property owners to get involved in the touch-up process. Kind of headache. Thoughts?
Wow.
Like, yeah, that is kind of a headache.
Yeah, never heard that before. Wow, I learned something new today. I guess I can go to bed. Yeah. Whew.
Honestly, my take is, if you're in that position, you just got to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you would at the end of you're kind of at the end of a residential project, except you've got 50 of them.
Yeah. So here's one way I would answer that. Eric's right. You're in the soup. You got to figure it out. That's where you definitely need to reference standards, the PCA standards at least, and so that you can eliminate some of that nitpicking. But And then we also talk in the course about sign-offs. So some of that, Eric, would have been addressed by, sign-offs and different approvals from whoever you're working for. So there's a couple of things you could have done that would not be too outrageous to really mitigate that, which is, approve as you go, punch as you go, and then addressing a standard, an industry standard would have been helpful too.
Okay. Anything else, folks? Let me take a last look. Okay. We're going to end it there. Scott, appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
Hope you guys watching got some value out of this. And, I do believe if you are a painting contractor, you are going to get opportunities for commercial work, and preparing when you get the opportunity, you're too late. And so we're going into, for most people, the slow season is, around the holidays. This is a good time to actually go through the course and get yourself prepped so that when these opportunities come, you're ready to capitalize on them. It's just a no-brainer to add commercial repaints to your business as a residential painting contractor. So if you guys have any questions about the course, let us know. Otherwise, there'll be a link around this video where you can go and actually sign up for it, and total game changer. So, and Scott knows this stuff inside and out. He does webinars a couple times a month for members, and we got a Facebook group and all that good stuff too. So I think that's it. Any last words, Scott?
No, thanks. That was fun.
Awesome. Okay. We'll see you everybody.
All right.